Welcome back. Today I thought I'd take a brief moment and discuss power hammers in general and the two power hammers that I have a little bit more specifically. This is not going to be instructional on how to use power hammers or specific recommendations for power hammers, but just a general overview and more of an introduction to the equipment I have in the shop. So as we go through the next several years on this channel, you'll be a little bit more familiar with why I have certain tools and what factors prompted my purchase of some of these tools. I don't want you to consider that I am telling you to go out and buy a particular power hammer or a power hammer at all. Whether you need or desire a power hammer is a decision you have to make. I'm not going to make that decision for you. I will say that the more you work by hand at the anvil, the better your skills will be. Once you've developed good hand skills, adding a power hammer opens new doors for you. Adding a power hammer before you develop those skills with a hand hammer at the anvil will limit your skill development, and the power hammer will start to define your work, and you may never develop those skills at the anvil. So if you have the ability to do it, learn to use this tool before buying that tool. I have two hammers in the shop. The oldest one is this Little Giant power hammer. It's a 25-pound Little Giant. It's a mechanical hammer, which means that it takes an electric motor, or in the old days, a jack shaft run off of a steam plant or a gas-powered motor or a water wheel, whatever the power came from, and converts that to rotary force, which then has to be converted to up and down force. And it has this arrangement of flywheels and arms, and it's just nearly a barbaric thing. But these have been around for a long time. This one, I believe, is a 1928 model. I don't remember exactly. So it's a very old power hammer, and it still works. It's been rebuilt at least one time that I know of, and maybe more than that. But as long as the major components, the major castings, the ram guides, and the clutch are all still there, a lot can be done with this. There's still somebody doing business as Little Giant. They don't make hammers anymore, but they sell a lot of the parts and offer a lot of support if you buy an old one that needs work. They offer classes for rebuilding hammers and things of that sort. Great resource if you like old mechanical hammers. And there are lots of other old mechanical hammers out there. Little Giant is just one of the more common ones that you're going to run into. So this is a good hammer. Little Giant made hammers in 25 pounds, 50 pounds, 100 pounds, 250, and 500 pound. And they get proportionally bigger all the way around. A 50-pound hammer is about double this size. There is not room in my shop for a 250-pound hammer, and I don't know what a 500-pound Little Giant looks like. I've never seen one. But they are good practical hammers. I keep drawing dies in here, which means they're curved dies and made specifically for stretching material out. They aren't very good for working with tools. But because I have another power hammer, I can get away with just leaving drawing dies in this, and this makes it a very useful hammer for me. I do a lot of small drawing out work under the 25-pound Little Giant. This one runs on 110 power, so it doesn't need real fancy power. It's a horse-and-a-half motor. I've seen them on one-horse motors, and they seem to get by okay with that. So good hammers. There's lots of them out there for sale. Some of them are basket cases and are better passed on, but I'm not the guy to tell you what hammer to buy or what hammer not to buy. This one came freshly rebuilt from some of the local blacksmiths. I've had it now for close to 20 years. It's a good, hard-working hammer. The big thing with these old mechanical hammers is oil them. It's got a place to put oil it every day you use it. It's got a place for grease it every day you use it. It's filthy and disgusting, but it needs to be because it needs the oil and the grease. If this is clean and shiny, you're probably not taking care of it. The other hammer is a 90-pound Bull air hammer. Bull was the name it was manufactured under. They are no longer in business. At one point, they had changed names to Phoenix Forging Hammers. Both are really pretty good little hammers, but I don't believe Phoenix Hammers is in business anymore either. But there are other people making very similar hammers out there. There are a lot of small air hammers, Trip Air, Big Blue, Ken's Custom Iron, who I think I've mentioned before, makes a KA 75, I think it is, and then a 100-pound version that I think are probably better hammers than this. I would like to try one sometime. But there are lots of these little hammers. This is run off of a separate air system. You have to have an air supply to use this hammer. So I have a 7.5 horse air compressor with an 80-gallon tank that I use to run this hammer. And an air cylinder back here is what takes care of that. But these are very controllable. Single hits. They'll stop at the bottom and clamp in many cases. And they're with flat dies in here. You take the air off of that. With flat dies in here, you can use all sorts of bottom tooling. Or I should say just all sorts of tooling. If you look up on the wall behind the hammers, all of this stuff are various dies that I can use under the flat dies of the hammer for making tenons, tapers. You can punch under a hammer with flat dies, use flatters, fullers, swedges, all sorts of things you can do under a hammer with flat dies. And there are other types of air hammers available out there. This would be under a class that is generally referred to as a utility hammer because it uses an exterior air supply. The early utility hammers were steam powered, and a lot of those have been converted to air if you're looking for antique hammers. Probably the best air hammers are the self-contained air hammers. And they are not cheap. There are some Chinese-made ones that aren't bad hammers, as I understand. I've never used one. An Anyang or a Striker, and they're made very similar to the old Nazel hammers, but they aren't as good as the old Nazels. And then there are the Austrian hammers, the Samac and Sehindler, and German hammers. The Kuhn hammer is probably an excellent self-contained air hammer, but hard to find in this country. The Samac and Sehindlers, I think, are still available. And as are the Anyangs and the Strikers. The best hammer, probably, in my opinion, out there were probably the Nazel self-contained air hammers. They're great big machines, very precise, very controllable, very desirable, and therefore very expensive. You know, this hammer, I think, cost me $6,000 used. A 250-pound Nazel's probably more of a $15,000 to $20,000 purchase, I would guess. And I'm just guessing, so don't quote me on that. So power hammers can be quite useful if you're getting older or if you have other issues and you can't swing a hammer. Your elbows and your shoulders and your wrists are about shot and you just don't have the stamina. A power hammer can be a great labor saver. If you're in business and trying to do things as quickly and as efficiently as possible, a power hammer can make you money. But it can also be a lot of money to buy. And I don't know if I'd go into debt to go out and buy a power hammer at this point. But I also don't think I would be without one. But I've spent a lot of years with a hand hammer, so I feel comfortable using a power hammer. So that's just a quick overview on power hammers. It's not a sales pitch for any one hammer. It's not a recommendation to go out and buy a power hammer. It's just a quick look at the hammers I have in my shop, and these just happen to be what was available when I was looking, is the main reason I have them, although this Bull, because of the small footprint, is the ideal hammer in my small shop. If I had any of the other hammers I've mentioned, I would have to cut this wall out and extend my roof line to make room for a bigger hammer. If you're in the market for a power hammer, I would suggest the first thing to do is to get some instruction from somebody who is very good with a power hammer and learn how to use one before you buy one. Make sure you're comfortable working with one. Make sure you can accept all the safety risks. A power hammer will hurt you severely before you ever know you've done something wrong. Big power hammers, anything over 100 pounds probably, certainly when you get up to 250s, 500s, 750 pound hammers, they can kill you. They are that serious of a machine, and it takes just a very small mistake to cause a serious injury. So get competent instruction if you're thinking about buying a power hammer and adding it to your stash of equipment. Probably better to start with a smaller one because while they will hurt you, they are less likely to kill you. So stay safe with them. Find somebody that knows what they're doing. Most local blacksmithing groups will have people that know how to use power hammers and are quite good with them. We have people in our local group with as big a hammer as 750 pounds or several 500-pound hammers, and it's not hard to go and visit some of these people and get their opinion on those hammers. If you're a hobbyist, you just don't need a hammer that big. 25 or 50-pound Little Giant is probably all the hammer you'll ever need. A simple air hammer gets you by for quite a while. I wouldn't be in a hurry to step up from that. I dream about the 250-pound Nazels, but I will probably never own one. So that's it for today's video. Get involved in your local blacksmithing group. They're the ones that have the equipment. They're the ones that know where the instruction is. Participate and you will learn more faster. You can only get so much from watching YouTube videos, and I really do appreciate it that you're watching my videos. So if you want to give a thumbs up, that's great. Hit that subscribe button. Share the videos with your friends. Go watch some of the other videos. Stay safe, have fun, and see you next time.